were soldiers once and young. Harold G. Moore's leadership excellence. Presented by Nicholas Buccarelli, Michael Garavich, Mitchell McGarian, Luis Ortiz, and Matthew Rue.
Topics to discuss.
Who was Lieutenant Colonel Harold G. Moore?
Training regimen tailored for his troops.
Instinctive decisions based on rigorous training.
Promises made, promises kept.
Who was Lieutenant Colonel Harold G. Moore?
A motivational leader.
Seventh Cavalry. We got a captain from the Ukraine.
Yes.
Another from Puerto Rico. We got Japanese, Chinese.
He not only motivated his men, but he
Jews and Gentiles.
Led by example.
All American.
Spearheaded the attack in the Iajang Valley, placing himself directly in the line of enemy fire and commanding his men from that location for the remainder of the fight.
He required that all his men shave and did it himself to lead by example.
He believed in his men. We are a tight, well-trained, and disciplined fighting force.
Where you will watch the back of the man next to you, as he will watch yours.
Lieutenant Colonel Moore's training plan.
What color he is.
Squad leaders were killed in training so that everyone, down to the privates of the companies, knew how to lead in the event that leaders were taken out.
The men trained in the same Hueys that they would use in combat, with the same kind of tactics that they would use in combat.
Huey pilots performed countless drills in order to know how to land in tough, uneven landing zones under fire.
Lieutenant Colonel Moore stressed the importance of speed so that his men moved as efficiently as possible.
The terrain that Lieutenant Colonel Moore trained his men on accurately simulated the Vietnamese landscape.
I will bring you all home.
Instinctive leadership decisions.
I swear. Before you and before Almighty God.
It was too quiet. This phrase was used by Lieutenant Colonel Moore throughout the novel because of this inert sense of danger, he
Identified weaknesses in his defenses.
Moved his men to the best possible defense positions.
made sure that an offensive attack was still possible.
Moved supplies so that materials were easily accessible.
Always had multiple plans to fall back on in a worst-case scenario.
Gave permission to call Broken Arrow since he knew that the Vietnamese were advancing too quickly.
Never underestimated the capabilities of the enemy and prepared for the worst.
Promises made, promises kept.
Although Lieutenant Colonel Moore didn't make many promises, he was passionate about the ones he did make.
Promises made.
Promise kept. He would never leave anyone on the battlefield.
All accounted for. No POWs, no MIAs.
They wouldn't all return to their families alive, but they would return nonetheless.
Each family was notified of their loved ones who passed. They were brought home with the surviving few.
Conclusion. Lieutenant Colonel Harold G. Moore was the best possible man for the job. He led with reckless abandon, led fearlessly, and trained his men to be the best they could be by being the best he could be. The end. Goodness gracious, I thought they were going to bust in here.